Episode number 12. Happy to be back with you once again this week. Hope you're all staying safe with COVID and more snow in the Northeast. I'm looking forward to, like, when I see Yankee spring training, and that's the theme of this week because pitchers and catchers are in Tampa, I'm glad to see grass because I forgot what grass actually looks like, and I don't want to Google it, but there's still more snow, so please stay safe. We got a lot to get into this week over the next hour. Of course, each of us is going to give our top 5 storylines going into spring training. Yankees, of course, they keep making moves when we're not on the air. They made a really interesting minor league signings and one reported major league sign that's not official, but we'll get into that. We'll review the non-roster invitees, what stands out to us on a major and minor league side. We'll, of course, also look at some minor league news. The affiliates were officially announced signing their PDLs and the schedules. So we finally realized that for right now, when minor league baseball is coming back, and maybe we'll review a couple other things as well. I kind of want to look at some catchers because we have had some catchers in the news for the Yankees based on videos from the player development department, what Kyle McDaniel wrote this week. So I kind of want to get into that a little bit. And, of course, we have trivia, which Alexis is going to do this week. So James and I are probably not going to get it right. And we have final thoughts. Want to remind you can tweet us on Twitter at Pinstripe Pros. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe to the Chasin 28 podcast on Pinstripe Prospects on iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast, just search Pinstripe Prospects. That's where you can find it. Give us a rating. We hope it's 5 stars, but tell us what you think, what you like, what you don't like. You can email us as well. Email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. We'll tell you more about our Dugout membership program a little bit later in the show. So I want to bring back the esteemed panel because all 3 of us are here this week, starting with James O'Connell. James, how you doing today?
Hanging in there, man. Tough couple of weeks for me, but I'm back and ready to talk about Yankee baseball.
And joining us, as always, the person who does a great job with our social media, Alexis Farinacci. Alexis, how are you?
Doing well. It's been a good couple weeks. I got some family in town here in Florida. Baseball's back. Not too much to complain about right about now.
Awesome to hear. So let's take a look at James and I kind of did this last year before the actual spring training, and then I think we did it for summer camp. But I want to get everybody's top 5 storylines going to spring training. We can talk about everything, but I want to know what's most important for you to watch in spring training. Then we can kind of debate on different things where we might rank stuff on our list as kind of the main topic for this segment. So I'm going to have James start with this one. James, what's your 5 storylines to watch this spring?
So really in no order, no more important than the other. So First I'll start with James and Tyon because, of course, you make the trade to get him, and it kind of makes headlines here and there. And you're wondering if this guy can be kind of a shell of what he was in 2018 when he was very effective and when he was seen as a guy that could potentially be a front-of-the-line guy. So you're watching that. You're watching his new delivery because I think on Twitter and all these podcasts and other stuff he's going on, he's made a big deal about how he's changed his delivery, which would limit his injuries. Coming to a team that seems to get injured every day, I would love to see how that works out. So that's one of my storylines, and I'll go to Corey Kluber, of course. So these 2 guys are kind of piggybacked off each other because those are the 2 guys he brought in to fix this rotation or to, I guess, bolster this rotation, if you want to say. So you want to see if Corey Kluber is, again, just like Tom, even a shell of his former self. Can he give you, I don't know, say 150 innings? Can he be effective in those 150 innings? What is he, or is this a Troy Tulowitzki thing where, he's going to play 1 or 2 games and that's it? You won't see him again in pinstripes. So I don't know. And then third, I just put injuries as a whole because I think this kind of escapes everyone's mind, but I really hope it hasn't in a sense, but because everyone talks about how talented this group is, but this group has yet to stay healthy throughout, I guess, the 3-4 years it's been together. So hopefully Eric Cressy's whole method that they brought in said it might take time, that it all works out for them, and these guys stay healthy and can have a competent season, like the guys like Judge, Stanton, Sanchez. He goes down the list. Hicks. Everyone gets hurt every other day, and you don't want to see that. So hopefully last year was kind of just maybe a fluke, even though it's been going on for a while now because of the shortened season. But I guess we'll see. And then fourth, Clint Frazier. So for the past, I guess, 2 seasons, Clint Frazier's entered training camp with kind of a chip on his shoulder. This is the first time where Aaron Boone or the manager, whoever the manager was at the time, I guess he only played under Aaron Boone. Or did he? No, I think he played in 2017 for time. Whatever. Regardless, this is the first time you entered spring training as, okay, he's the guy to play left field. So how does he approach that? If you remember, he was kind of coming in last season and the season before that saying, I'm looking to take Brett Gardner's job. Well, Aaron Boone kind of awarded him the left fielder position. Like it's his to lose, essentially. He's our left fielder entering the season. How is he going to handle that? Is he just going to go? Is he going to still play like he has a chip on his shoulder? Or is he going to be like, I finally got what I want? Who knows? We'll see what happens with Clint. I think that's something to watch. And then fifth, Brett Gardner. I think until Brian Cashman or Hal Steinbrenner comes out and says, we're not bringing him back, this will be a question that'll be asked by reporters for a while until again, they say something. So throughout the spring, I'm sure you'll hear questions about Brett Gardner. Are they going to bring him back? Is there a spot for him? I don't know. I wouldn't mind necessarily giving him a contract to see if he can compete with the other lefty bats, such as Derek Dietrich, Greg Allen, and so on, Talkman. I wouldn't mind to see if he can do something in spring. But, again, they can do without Brett Gardner, and especially now that we know that he wouldn't, regardless if they bring him back or not, is not going to be starting left field because Aaron Boone awarded that to Clint Frazier. If you want to bring him back as a veteran, a clubhouse guy, that's fine, but that's a storyline that'll continue throughout the spring until someone answers that question.
I like what you say with Frazier in terms of, you're right, Boone did say he's going to be the starting left fielder. I don't really worry about in terms of if he's going to play well this spring. I don't think he has to. I think it's just more of at least finally settling in, knowing you're the starter. And I agree on the Gardner thing. Alexis, I'll have you chime on this too before we get to your list. I feel like they're talking about Gardner as if he's like holding out or something. It feels like he's part of the team, but he's not part of the team. I'm just going to assume Gardner's coming back until I hear another team is in the mix, because I know there was a report the Yankees wanted to go to $3 million and Gardner wants more than $3 million. And I feel like that's something maybe that won't hover over spring training to start off with, but it just still feels like he's here but not here at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think another question mark, too, about whether he is part of this team or not is, I think it's kind of concerning. You hear Aaron Boone say he hasn't talked to him in the past few weeks. And Aaron Boone's presser yesterday, he said he really hasn't had much conversation or discussion with Gardy. So that makes you wonder if he is coming back, or if this conversation obviously goes beyond Aaron Boone into the front office of Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner. But it really does make you wonder. I mean, it's clear now Clint Frazier is the man. Clint Frazier is our starting left fielder. I'd kind of be surprised to see Gardner back at this rate, but, I mean, you never know. We'll see. He is a veteran. The Yankees seem to continue to like him, but we'll see what happens.
So, Alexis, let's get into your list. What's your 5 storylines? I don't know if you ranked them, but give us your 5.
Yeah, I'd say in no particular order, again, and I think James kind of climbed into my brain, but definitely pitching rotation, your top storyline there. Again, can Corey Kluber and Jamison Tylon stay healthy? And then what does this rotation do? How deep into games can they actually go? And how early do you have to end up going into your bullpen this season? I think you look at Garrett Cole, who we know can go potentially 7 to even 8-9 innings deep. Obviously not early on, but as we get midway into the season, we know that he's there for that longevity. He's good to go for a while, but these other starters, how long are they going to stay in there? How early are they going to come out? How quick do we have to go to that bullpen? So that would definitely be one for me. Number 2, Clint Frazier. I think it's going to be an exciting year to see what he does. He's come in again, as James said, and just really battled for his position in the last 2 to 3 years. And, last year getting a decent amount of playing time and really showing that he deserves that starting left field spot and that he's capable of it. Now this year getting it, does he keep that same momentum? Now that he has earned that spot, does he continue to earn it as the season progresses? Does he continue to perform and deliver the way he did last year? I think would be number 2. Number 3 for me is Gary Sanchez. We saw that he was kind of up and down again in the Dominican League, but ended it strong and had a decent winter down there. But what can he do coming back this season? Obviously, it was a big question mark. Ended up getting benched by Aaron Boone last year. Can he come back and perform? He's got to earn that spot in order to stay. And there's some good catchers coming up in the pipeline for the Yankees this year that they could turn to some of this young talent as well. So what can Gary Sanchez do this season, I think, is number 3 to look at. Number 4, I'd have to agree with James as a whole, is the whole Eric Cressy situation. Can these players stay healthy? And to tag along the side of that, looking to see what Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge, this whole new regimen of not as much weightlifting but more cardio, what does that do for them at the plate? Are they still going to be able to produce with that raw power, or are we going to see them struggle at all? Just really interested to see what that offseason new regimen does for them coming into this year. And then 5th and final, I think thing that you look at if you're the Yankees as a whole is just, can you continue to win? Can you make that postseason push this year for the playoffs? And, again, just as a whole, the guys need to stay healthy in order to do that.
Definitely a good list there. I think a lot of those questions were not going to get answered until April and May, because I think with the Kluber tie-on point, to me, I don't really worry about what they do this spring as long as they go up north healthy. I think that's really the ultimate key for me. I mean, it's going to be cool to see them pitch in a Yankee uniform to start off with, but at least as long as they're healthy, they're certainties. So I don't know what you guys think, but to me, I'll worry about Kluber and Taillon when we get to like late April, because I don't think they really need to go out there and dominate in spring training. Colders need to dominate in spring training. To me, it's just about, for those 3, maybe Taillon more so than the other 2, but just getting their work in and seeing and just making sure they're staying healthy after each game is more critical. But let me get into my 5 storylines, and you 2 can debate what my storylines are, what you think. I am actually a lot different than both of you, so this might be interesting. Number 5, I went to progression of 3 young Yankee pitchers. I want to see more Luis Medina. I want to see more Luis Gil. And I want to see if the Yankees use Yoendris Gomez. 3 pitchers on their 40-man roster. We know Medina pitched well over the winter. We know how dominant of a fastball Gil has. And Gomez is that guy that had a great 2019 at the lower levels and made his way onto the 40-man roster. I think we'll be interested to see where those 3 guys, how they progress as they head into late in the spring training, and then ultimately where they're all placed when the minor league season begins, whether it's in AAA Scranton probably for Medina and Gil, and maybe Gomez starts at Double-A Somerset. So that should be pretty interesting with those 3. Number 4, I'm calling it, where in the world will Miguel Andujar play? Because we've heard Aaron Boone talk about third base, we've heard him talk about first base, heard him talk about the outfield, and Andujar's in a competition for some of these bench spots, because even if Gardner's not on the roster, you have Greg Allen, you have Tauchman, you brought in Jay Bruce on a minor league deal, which we'll get into. They brought in Derek Dietrich on a minor league deal, who can play a bunch of different positions. So Andujar's spot, probably looking like right now it's AAA, but he can still make a statement going forward that maybe he has a shot off the bench. I don't think he's going to play third base to start off with, but we'll see if he can find a position that can settle in better than he could in summer camp when everything was rushed last year. Number 3, it's with both of you. Will there be a Brett Gardner sighting? As I said, I think it's kind of hovering over spring to start off with. If there's an injury, or maybe the Yankees make a trade with Tauchman or Allen or one of these guys to clear a spot, that would be interesting to see. But there's still some money left for Brett Gardner if they want to go that route. But I think until either he signs or signs somewhere else, it'll be interesting. Number 2, it's the Yankees bullpen, but how do they fill out those final spots? I think your locks are Chapman, Britton, Green, O'Day, Wilson, Loizaga. So you're looking at 2 spots between Sessa, Albert Abreu, Brooks Kriske, and you could also throw in, I think, Nestor Cortez, Nick Nelson, and whoever loses the 5th starter spot. So you're basically, when the Yankees are going to carry about 13, 14 pitchers, These last two spots, at least to open the season, are going to be interesting. And my number one storyline is who's your fifth starter? You got Cole, you got Kluber, you got Taillon, you got Montgomery. Who's the fifth guy? Is it Davy Garcia, who I think should be the favorite for that spot? Is it Clark Schmidt? Is it Michael King? We heard Aaron Boone mention Yelich Chasin is an option. And it's probably your veteran option if you feel more comfortable with going with a guy that at least is a guaranteed innings person to start off with. You can go that direction. Domingo German is there, but we're going to get into this. I'm not so sure, to both of you, that he's going to make the team. I do not like the Instagram things he posts and everything's over and then deletes them. And this isn't the first time he's done that. And the Yankees have given him a lot of chances. And we don't know what he did or what exactly he did. If he doesn't pitch well, I know the Yankees might want to try to trade him to get something back, but at this point, I don't really know what value he has other than a guy pitching for a fifth starter position. We know he had a good year a few years ago, but does that kind of talent merit keeping him on the roster? I'm not so sure.
So I was actually surprised that Domingo German wasn't – I guess he was kind of on your list, Ricky, but I was surprised he wasn't kind of – I actually honestly forgot to put him on mine. But it's an interesting conversation because, again, the Yankees are a no BS organization. That's how they approach things, even though, again, they did bring in Aroldis Chapman after that whole situation. But regardless, especially when it happens under their roof, they're really, really tough with that stuff. So all being said, he, first of all, is not a very good pitcher. He had that one year where the Yankees produced a lot offensively when he pitched. I think people get it mixed up, especially the oldies out there who still think that wins is a meaningful statistic. The Yankees produced a lot offensively when Domingo German pitched. He's not a good pitcher. He, under no circumstances would I feel comfortable with him pitching in a game that means anything outside of maybe a game in Camden Yards. So I want to make it clear, I don't think this guy is good. And I hope the Yankees recognize that. And on top of his whole situation, you kind of mix that in. This guy, I don't see as much of a spot for him at all on this team. I don't see a spot. Actually, I don't see a spot at all for him on this team unless he completely dominates in spring. But I won't see him. I don't think he's going to make this team, kind of like you said, Ricky.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with everything you guys are saying on that one. I think jokingly now, though, I kind of do want to see him make the team because I think we found James' next rant player here. But yeah, I don't know that Domingo German makes this roster this year. And again, you talk about the coherence and cohesiveness in the clubhouse. Does he bring drama and negativity, or is there going to be positivity? Has he gotten stronger in the suspension period to where he can actually last in a game? But I almost look at the Yankees roster and I don't see him in it either.
That's actually an underrated thing that you said. But hold on before you go, Ricky. This is the first time in a while. Actually, this is the first time, I think, since I've really started getting kind of really into baseball outside of just watching the games, not really diving into everything. But I don't really hate anyone on this team. I don't. I hated J Happ. Before J Happ, I hated Chase Headley. I don't really hate anyone on this team. So whoever takes the crown here, I'm excited just to see who that is.
So let's mark that down. James does not hate anybody just yet.
No, I don't. Team. I don't. There's not a player in this team I hate. Well, again, unless German makes a team, then he's the guy. But outside, I really don't think he will. So outside of that, I don't hate anyone on this team yet at all.
Which we bring up German, and I think one of the storylines, at least so far in the first couple of days of spring, is actually what Zack Britton said on Thursday. Zack Britton was asked about playing with German, and he said, this is from NJ.com, my job is to go out there and pitch and do my job. So that's kind of what my concern is right there. But German doesn't owe me anything. I think it's something that he's going to have to deal with on his own and make better choices going forward. And then it was also something that Britton said, sometimes you don't get to control who your teammates are, and that's the situation. That's the quote that's blown up. If you read the context to it, he understands German, there's no place in the game for what he did. He's not saying that, I mean, I guess he's saying if he could control his teammates, German probably wouldn't be one of his teammates. And that's where I think, unless German dazzles this spring, you wonder if him being in that locker room or in that clubhouse plays a factor. Yes, the Yankees and German, I'm sure, have talked about it repeatedly, and they've had to talk about his latest Instagram post. But at some point, I think German has some talent. I don't think he's great, but I think he showed enough to be in the rotation a couple of years ago, but he was not very good in winter ball either. Out of the guys in that fifth spot, he kind of has to be the guy who dazzles to get it. I don't think Garcia or Schmidt, Garcia I don't think has to dazzle that much. Schmidt, maybe not, although you could argue Schmidt might start in the rotation in AAA just to keep him ready. King could be a starter reliever kind of guy. But I think German would have to blow everybody away in spring to have a real shot, because I think he has judging by Britton's comments, and again, we're not in that room, he's got a lot to make up, not to the Yankees, but to the players in that clubhouse.
Agreed. I don't think we'll see him on this team again, unless he dominates, like you said.
So let's take a look at some Yankee non-roster let's take a look at some Yankee signings, and then we'll dive into the non-roster invitees. And the one that's been the most notable is Justin Wilson. We don't know what his deal is because it's not official. The Yankees love doing this, right? They love making a reported signing and then taking 2 weeks to figure out how to make the roster spot fit. We saw it with Darren O'Day. We're seeing it now with Wilson. Of course, he was with the Yankees a few years ago, got him from Pittsburgh. Traded him then away to Detroit a couple years after that. He's a pitcher I've always liked, and yes, it's kind of for selfish reasons, because back at my former Yankee writing spot, I was the first to interview Justin Wilson and became a Yankee. We're still trying to get him on this podcast. I don't know if we'll be successful, but we'll find out. But Alexis, you wrote this article up for us. I like this fit for Wilson. He's a lefty, knows how to pitch to both lefties and righties, which you have to do in the three-batter rule, and he's pitched in New York and pitched pretty well in New York. I think this is a good versatile option in the middle innings for Boone.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that one, Ricky. Definitely a good signing. We saw that he was successful with the Mets. 23 strikeouts, WHIP of 1.37, 19.2 innings pitched in 2020. Averaged 95 on his fastball, has a cutter, slider, curveball as well. Again, just a guy who, like you said, is versatile, can come in, can strike out batters, and can really be a guy who Boone can lean on, I think, like you said, in those middle innings. And I think he'll be a good fit to this bullpen for sure, especially coming back to pinstripes. He's excited to cross the subway and be back in the Bronx.
And that's one of the things, James, when you look at the Yankees, while some might be underwhelmed by their offseason, I can understand why some might feel that way because they're not spending through the roof. The one thing Boone did and Cashman did this winter is they went out there, and Chapman and Britton, are your ninth and eighth inning guys respectively. But you take a little bit of pressure off of Green by bringing in the Wilsons and the Darren O'Days that could pitch whenever inning. You have Loizaga, who Boone goes to in any high leverage situation. So they have kind of those four pitchers that Boone can mix and match with. And I think that's of high value. We'll see if it plays out, because we don't know if O'Day will continue to have the strong season he had with Atlanta. We don't know what Wilson really can do. He hasn't pitched more than 45 games in a couple of years. But I think for now they put together some good versatility and depth in the back of the bullpen.
So, yeah, when I saw this, I was kind of relieved, because you go, like I said in kind of a couple of shows last time I was on, I guess, this team's bullpen is not good. Everyone had this misconception that the Yankees had this dominant bullpen, which they didn't. It's not the same bullpen they had in 2017, 2018 for that matter, 2019. It's not. It wasn't even close to the same. So they had to fix that middle of the bullpen, because, again, they were going to guys like Jonathan Holder in crucial spots. And that was another guy I hated. Thank God they got rid of him. But regardless, you bring in O'Day, you bring in Wilson, it shores that up that middle. So I don't know if I'll hate either one of those guys, because Wilson's solid. Wilson can get outs. He's done it for a long time. He's done it in many different cities, and he's done it right here in New York twice. So I'm excited for Justin Wilson. That's a phenomenal signing. I love what they did there, making kind of use of that. Well, again, like we don't know the contract, but making use of that Adam Ottavino trade to Boston when they shedded his $10 million. I guess he went $2.5 million to O'Day, and I don't know what to Wilson. But if you told me, okay, you can get rid of Ottavino, but you can bring in O'Day and Wilson, of course, you take that all day. That's more versatility. That's more options. Aaron Boone needed more options because his bullpen was not good. So hopefully that fixes that issue, and hopefully these guys perform.
We'll get into the other major league non-roster invitees, and one that stood out, and our own Robert Coles wrote an article on it that went out a couple days ago, is Robinson Torinos. Obviously, I think it's not a big Yankee loss, but losing Eric Kratz as a veteran catcher for AAA is somewhat of a big deal. Not something you panic over, but the Yankees went out and signed Robinson Torinos, who over his 9-year career has hit .230. But he's played with Garrett Cole with the Astros. And I'm interested, Alexis, with this. How does Torinos fit in? Because none of us mentioned Gary Sanchez or the catching situation in our 5 storylines. And Aaron Boone has said Gary Sanchez has still a chance to pitch opening day. He hasn't said Kyle Higashioka is going to be Garrett Cole's personal catcher. Now, I think it's just something he's not going to say now because doesn't want to limit his options, wants to give Sanchez a chance. But adding Torinos as a veteran catcher option, very sneaky good move by Cashman here. A guy that has hit for Pop in 2017 through 2019. He had 17-plus homers in each of those years. So some good offense and a familiar face for Garrett Cole is never a bad thing to add.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, with agreeing with you, Ricky, I think we see Kyle Higashioka as Garrett Cole's man behind that plate. But at the same token, Torinos and Cole both do have that history together. I think this is Gary Sanchez's position to win or lose at this spring training. I think he's got to come in and perform in order to get that starting catching position. Or you could see Higashioka or Torinos overtake him and become that day one and or everyday starter or that man for Cole. I think it's going to be an interesting battle. Torinos does have that offensive weapon as well that we know Sanchez has struggled with in the past, and Higashioka can come up big when he needs to at times, but again, not necessarily the power that the rest of the lineup has, and that Torinos could really bring in that veteran capability.
James, do you think the catcher situation got better with Torinos, and how do you view Boone's comments on Sanchez and Higashioka going into spring training?
Yeah, so on the catching situation, no change to me. It's still Sanchez and Higashioka. Robinson Torinos, I'm sorry, he's not good. I don't think he's very good at all. He doesn't hit well. I think he hit like 160 last year. And for the people out there, I saw this on Twitter, and I was infuriated because that means you just would. If you were saying this, that means you probably just weren't paying attention. Martin Maldonado was Garrett Cole's guy in Houston. Robinson Torinos was not his guy. He did not catch. He caught Garrett Cole, I'm sure, on circumstances, but Martin Maldonado was his personal catcher. So this doesn't change anything as it pertains to Garrett Cole, because even when Torinos was on the same team as him, with the catcher, another catcher who really couldn't hit that well, he still didn't catch him. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, like these people are just uninformed. So Torinos, to me, not very good, not a good catcher. I don't expect him to really do much of anything, but except maybe be an emergency guy if one of these guys get hurt, such as Sanchez or Higashioka.
Take a look at the rest of the Yankee non-roster invitees from the Major League perspective, and we'll look at some of the guys within their own organization in our second segment. First off, I was very happy Nick Goody is back. I've talked with Nick before. Was drafted by the Yankees, had a stint with the Yankees, was with Cleveland, Texas. I think he'll be some good help for the bullpen. Adam Warren, we've talked about before. The two big names we've not mentioned, we got to mention Chris Gittins is back. So I think that's a good thing for first base depth in the organization. But the two guys that are going to get the most eyeballs is Jay Bruce and Derek Dietrich. Personally, James, I know you're not supposed to hate minor league signings, and I don't hate this one, I was just confused by Jay Bruce because you're bringing him in as a lefty bat, and the Yankees, we all know, need left-handed bats. But here's your problem with Bruce. The guy can barely hit over 200. And even when he's got that lefty-righty split thing, when you look at from the year ago, he hit 210. I mean, maybe Yankee Stadium brings some of the power in him again. Hit 6 home runs for the Phillies last season in a short season, 32 games. Hit 12 and 50 games. It's hit a total, actually, of 26 in 2019 with Seattle and Philadelphia. I'm just not sure what Jay Bruce brings. He's going to be 34 in April. I get why they did it. I'm just not sure if it's going to work.
You see, I don't hate it maybe as much as you do. I kind of like it.
I think, again, hate's a strong word. I don't hate it. I wasn't in love with it like I saw a lot of Yankees fans like, oh, this is interesting. It's a Gardner replacement. I'm just confused by it. Probably a better word.
Right. I'm on the border of like, I like it and like, that's kind of where I stand. Because the Yankees are notorious for these reclamation projects where one guy comes in, his career's over, all of a sudden he's hitting 50 home runs. Like they're obviously, I'm exaggerating. That's not Jay Bruce is not going to do that. But as a lefty bat off the bench, is it really crazy to think he could be kind of effective at the end of the day in a spot where the Yankees have a righty up who can't hit a righty, or there's a tough righty in the mound, you want to bring in a lefty? Would I rather have Jay Bruce step up to the plate or Mike Ford? And at that point, I think I lean Jay Bruce. And I guess we'll see what happens with him in spring. But I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm kind of just like, about it. So we'll see what Brian Cashman – because, again, there's always a bigger plan with these little signings that Brian Cashman makes, and then they kind of just come out of the woods and absolutely take us by surprise. So we'll see what he has in store with us for this. Maybe his exit velocity was great. Who knows? Who knows what went on in Brian Cashman's head? But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Alexis, what did you make of the Bruce signing? Because I'm kind of with James. I was confused thinking it was to replace Gardner. Maybe I'm thinking it's a lefty bat that has some first base that could take bats away from Mike Ford.
Yeah, definitely an interesting situation there, especially with the Yankees announcing and Aaron Boone announcing that Clint Frazier is going to have that starting position. Really does make that an interesting signing now. It makes you wonder if he's just, again, to kind of bolster that lineup and be able to have a bat that can come in and do some damage. Because it kind of makes you question where in the outfield he's going to go with that outfield already kind of full, and even the bench full of outfielders that could come in replacement.
The other big signing I mentioned, Alexis, is Derek Dietrich, another guy that can play, well, pretty much anywhere except catcher. He's hit below 200 each of the last 2 seasons, but he's been mainly in a pinch hitting role like we've seen with Cincinnati. He can have hot streaks on any given occasion. The Yankees could use some infield depth. What do you make of Dietrich?
Yeah, again, I think he's a guy who can come in off the bench if needed. If the Yankees are in a pinch or have an injury or something like that, I think he's someone who can come in and kind of provide that backup capability for the Yankees. I don't necessarily see him as a starter, but he does give depth off the bench in the infield.
James, what are your thoughts on Dietrich before we go into the next segment?
Just a flyer. He wasn't all that good when he was, I guess, kind of in his prime. So, again, just a flyer, another lefty bat, kind of see if they can get anything out of him.
So that'll be something, of course, that we'll keep monitoring. The Major League invitees, a lot of interesting ones. We're going to get into the minor league ones in a little bit. Want to remind you, of course, here at Pinstripe Prospects, we provide exclusive content to paid subscribers with our Dugout membership program. You get scouting reports, player interviews, features, and much more to our free Major League coverage. You're going to see a lot more minor league coverage coming up in the next few weeks. My Hayden Westnecki interview is going to go up sometime in the next couple of days. Had a lot to dive into with that, so that'll be up soon. Our own Matt Cardos is working on a couple interviews. We'll have a lot more as we get closer. Again, April 6th is the start of the AAA season. May 4th is going to be a start for AA and high and low A for all the teams. So as we get closer, you'll see much more minor league coverage on the website. So you can sign up for $5.50 a month, $40 a year. But if you're not sure and you want to use get your first 7 days free to try us out, you can use our promo code Chasin28pod. It's CHASIN 28 pod. You get your first 7 days free. So give us a shot. We definitely would appreciate it. And we look forward to providing some great content for you over the next few weeks and months as we actually have a minor league season to talk about this year, which is going to be a lot of fun. So in addition to the Major League invitees, the Yankees invited 12 players in their organization to spring training. Mandy Alvarez, Trey Ambergy, Josh Bro, Ezekiel Duran, Trevor Lane, Reggie McClain, who was a Rule 5 pick. We've talked about him before. Max McDowell, Glenn Otto, Hoy Jun Park, Addison Russ, who we've talked about before, Anthony Siegler, and Austin Wells. So, Alexis, we look at those 12 names. Which ones stand out to you?
For me, I definitely look at Hoy Jun Park, a guy who I got to cover in Tampa and got to see play for a couple of years while I worked there. He's got speed. He's got the ability to put the bat on the ball. Just a really exciting guy to watch at the plate, and then really work his way around those base pads. Someone who could add versatility for the Yankees, as a left-handed batter as well. Excited to see him get the opportunity this year. You look at Austin Wells, who's a recent draftee by the Yankees, someone who, again, has already really proved himself to be strong this spring. Was swinging the bat well today in camp, as they showed on Twitter today. And then another guy, Kellen Deglin, another guy I got to cover a little bit in Tampa. Just another really good guy, great catcher behind the plate. Someone who could provide that depth for the Yankees in that catching position.
James, is there anybody on that list that caught your eye? To me, I look at it with the catchers because you have all three of them in camp, Siegler, Bro, and Wells. And we're going to get into catchers, I think, on a future episode. I think we'll save the breakdown for a couple weeks or two. But you heard Kylie McDaniel from ESPN say great things about Josh Bro as a possible breakout candidate for this season. Wells getting an invite, I think, into Major League spring training right away is a really good sign for him going forward, and we'll see how aggressive the Yankees are with him starting out. To me, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to seeing some of these catchers playing games, especially Wells.
So, yeah, Siegler and Wells are kind of where I was going to go because it's maybe a look at what the future is at a catcher. Because we've had the conversation about Gary Sanchez how many times. So we all know what's going on there. And even if Gary Sanchez does have kind of a resurrection in the next couple of years, I don't see him catching much longer past the age of 30, 31. He's really not doing a great job now. So it may be a look at kind of what you got in the future. So we'll see what happens with those two guys.
So I think those are definitely two names to look at. Another name that's interesting, and we actually got a tweet asking us about him. Third Ward Astros on Twitter. We put out a question. What are your storylines to watch in spring training? I think people interpret it as the season, which we also appreciate as well. And they asked us about Glenn Otto, who's going to be 25 this year, and what the Yankees' plans could be for him. To me, Otto is a really interesting candidate because he's battled injuries over the last couple of seasons. I don't know if he's going to be in the rotation just because he hasn't thrown a lot. I know my buddy Wayne Cavati covered him a couple of times when he was with Charleston. My buddy Wayne covered the Rome Braves for minor league ball and the Braves side in SB Nation as well. I would be interested to see if the Yankees try Otto in the bullpen because the Yankees have lost a lot of arms at the upper levels of the organization due to Rule 5. That I think Otto could be a fit there. The Yankees obviously like his game. He's got a good curveball to go with the fastball. But I wonder how much progression he's made. Does he start in Hudson Valley? Probably does at high A just because he hasn't really gone that far in the organization just yet. But he made it to high A Tampa in 2019. Maybe he starts in high A and gets a boost to double A if he pitches well by the end of the season. He's a long way to go, but that's an interesting name I think that was mentioned. So good job. Good question by Third Ward Astros on that. But I'm intrigued by Bro. I got to cover him in Staten Island. We've talked about him a couple of times on the show. He's a player that has good power, good contacting ability. The defense is a question. Siegler's a good defensive catcher, but you wonder with the offense, and he hasn't really been staying on the field. So that competition between the two of them I find really interesting just for minor league assignments in general. And the other one's Duran. I think Duran getting an invite is big because Duran is – we look at the Yankees' middle infield situation, and they are really crowded there. And one of the only ones at the lower levels that got an invite was Duran. that kind of has to tell you, Alexis, think a little bit. You brought up Park, who's that upper level middle infield guy. We've talked about it on the show with Cabrera and Josh Smith and Peraza. Duran getting an invite here is kind of interesting because he hasn't played above short season. And to get that invite, I think, is very telling of maybe the progression he's made during this long off season in these Zoom workouts.
Yeah, that's what you would have to think. I mean, that's really the only way that the coaches have been able to see the players this offseason is through that means of Zoom and through videos that players have sent coaches. And you have to think that is the way that he's getting that opportunity, having, again, only played through short season. But then we see Wells, too, who he got a non-roster invite and he was just drafted. So really a lot of really interesting guys that the Yankees have to take a look at. And it'll be interesting to see where some of these guys start at the minor league level coming out of camp here in April into May.
We also got a good question from Derek Fung, DERICFUNG on Twitter. Names to watch for breakout candidates this season in the minor leagues. And I thought this was a good question. Our own Rob Pinsner, the founder of the site, brought up a couple names. Johnny Brito, who's a starting pitcher, who's done a little bit of both starting and relieving. Andre Chaparro, who I got to see a little bit as well in Staten Island at third base. He's kind of cut down the strikeouts, which I think is a big key for him. He has a lot of pop, which I think is a good sign. And Jake Sanford's another player that has good power in his game as well. Very quickly looking at Brito, he's going to be 24 in February. And with Charleston in 2019, 3.58 ERA, 240 batting average against, threw over 100 innings. So Brito's a guy that has been built up to be a starter, but only made 9 starts. So we'll see what the Yankees' plans are for him. That's another guy you pair with Otto. I'll give you one more. And if Alexis or James, you want to add on a guy you want to watch, at least minor league-wise, you can as well. I thought about it with the loss of Whitlock and the loss of Matt Wavinis in Rule 5. I thought back to a guy I watched in Staten Island a couple years ago. Ron Maranacio, I think, is an intriguing pitcher. He pitched really well with Pulaski in 2019 after he got drafted by the Yankees out of Delaware. Pitched well in Staten Island as well. The ERA was pretty high, but he had a couple of bad outings that makes the ERA, I think, a little bit skewed. Can get about 91, 93 on the fastball consistently. Has a good off-speed pitch with a changeup, which he's been working on. A 19th round pick. Grew up a Yankees fan. And one of the things to keep an eye on also, he's a really good leader. He was a captain at Delaware. He did have 18 walks and about a walk per game in I think it was in Charleston in 2019 when he got to pitch in full season ball. So that's something maybe you want to watch. He's going to turn 26 in July. But I think he is a pitcher that so far in his minor league career, 110 strikeouts. Pretty good number, and he's held him in low A to a 200 batting average against. Pretty good. So I like the way that he's pitching. James, Alexis, do you have anybody that you would recommend to our listeners, a guy you're looking to watch for? Maybe a guy off the radar? I guess, Alexis, you would be more inclined to answer this one. A guy off the radar that you're looking to see how he does this year.
Alexis, all you. I got none.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, there's, quite a few who I'd like to see what they do this year. I'm trying to think of his name real quick.
Well, I mean, even if it's not off the radar, just give me a guy like you're looking forward to following this season, I think. Probably be a better question.
Yeah, I got one. I mean, he's a minor leaguer first baseman. Diego Castillo, that's the name. I couldn't come up with the name to save my Diego Castillo, as I think a guy who might have a breakout year this year. He's done really well at the minor league level so far. I'm excited to see what he can do this year.
That's a good pick too. I thought he played really well in the infield for, I think it was Tampa a couple years ago. Yeah. Guy that really didn't get a lot of attention, but a player to keep an eye on. So thanks for the questions. We take them every week. So if you want to tweet us again at Pinstripe Pros is where you want to go for that. Alexis, last one before we wrap up this week and we get to your daunting trivia question. You wrote up the PDLs being officially announced for us for the minor league affiliates, but Thursday was schedule day. The Yankees announcing, all minor league teams announcing their schedules for the upcoming season. I mentioned AAA is April 6th, May 4th for AA and the rest of the affiliates. what'd you make of the schedules? A lot of real unique schedules this year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the schedules were definitely interesting to see come out this year. One thing that I don't know how I feel about it quite yet, but is this whole 6-game home road stand deal. Every team that comes in, you're going to be playing 6 against that team right off the bat. So you have 6 home games, 6 away games, 6, et cetera, however that schedule works. But whatever team you're playing them 6 times in a row before you leave that city. Which I think is going to be really interesting. You're going to see some pitchers twice in that same homestand or road stand, wherever you're at, with again, Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball trying to limit travel due to COVID. I think it's going to pose a little bit of an interesting situation there. But yeah, really interesting schedules getting released today for sure.
One of the things I found interesting as well, they talk about limiting travel, but you have teams like, we'll bring up a couple of affiliates, for example. High Hudson Valley is playing, of course, they play Brooklyn, they play Aberdeen. I believe they're playing Greensboro, Winston-Salem. I get the divisions are a little weird, and Hudson Valley doesn't make those trips later in the year. You're going to see a lot of Jersey Shore, which used to be Lakewood for the Phillies, going to Wilmington. I'm a little confused by the division format, at least in the Hudson Valley side. And you could also touch on this, the whole Met-Yankee rivalry stuff. I don't think it exists. Matt Cardos, who's our AA Somerset writer, wrote up the schedule on Thursday. There is no meeting with Somerset and Binghamton this year. So no Yankee-Met AA rivalry. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Alexis, I don't think Tampa and St. Lucie play each other much either.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting. And I'm looking up now. I'm trying to look up St. Lucie's schedule.
I was like taking a peek at it today, and I'm like, I kept seeing, I saw one Tampa St. Lucie series. I don't know if I saw another one. Because they were sending out they sent out a press release of the schedule, so it's like they play schedule list.
They play Tampa 6 days in a row in August, and that is it. So yeah, not very much Mets, not very much Met and Yankee minor league this year at all. Yeah, you got the Tarpons again. They're only playing St. Lucie that once in August.
I also like the interesting thing of that, and James, I think you could attest to this too. They're playing some teams are playing other teams 42 times. If I'm playing one team 42 times, there's going to be eventually a lot of bad blood with that team. I'm interested to see how many tensions get heated in some of these matchups where teams are playing each other 42 times in a season.
That is the first time I'm hearing of that. What do you mean? Like within division?
Well, because they want to limit the travel, it's only in the divisions,
right?
In all the leagues. So, like Alexis was saying, you're playing 6-game series, and because the schedule, you're only playing a limited amount of teams. Some teams are going to play each other. I think a AAA example would be, I think it's Norfolk and Jacksonville.
Okay, this is minor league, right?
Yes.
Okay, I thought this was major league for a second.
No.
Whoa,
but playing still, when you play,
funny. That's so funny. Yeah.
In any style of baseball, you play a team 40 times in a given season, something's going to happen.
Oh yeah, of course. You play a team 2 times in a season, something's going to happen. That's kind of how it goes.
But definitely something to look an eye on with the schedule. Props to Matt Cardos for writing it up for us on the Somerset side. Follow his coverage throughout the season, and we'll give you more updates. Hopefully we'll get coaching staff announcements soon and rosters as we get closer, especially with AAA only being less than 2 months away. So pretty soon, and we have a writer at Scranton for you guys, Hudson Valley, Somerset with Matt. So we have writers right now at 3 of the 4 affiliates. We're looking forward to bringing great coverage this season. So as we wrap up the show this week, we've heard complaints on the staff that I asked too many hard trivia questions. So with that being the case, we are now rotating the questions so they can make me look dumb once in a while. So Alexis last week volunteered to come up with a trivia question, so I will let Alexis take it away.
Yeah, my trivia question, it does go back some few years here. but I had to try to stump Ricky, so I found this one and I was like, I'm going to go for it. We'll see if he gets it. The question is, when Babe Ruth retired in 1935 with 714 home runs, you're welcome, Ricky. Only 2 other players had hit 300 home runs. Who were they?
Hold on, say that again?
Really, repeat that again?
Yeah, so I heard 1935.
When Babe Ruth retired in 1935 with 714 home runs, only 2 other players had hit 300 home runs. Who were they?
I love how first off,
feel like
let me
I
say
might
this.
know them.
All right, I'll let James. You could go first with it, but I just want to say that to be fair, I asked topical trivia questions with recent years, and Alexis is throwing 1935 at me.
Right.
I think we have
It's
to.
still a Yankees-related question.
Right.
So.
All right, fair point.
I don't know if I know all 3.
Go ahead.
I think I can get. Is Harmon Killebrew one of them?
It was only 2. Harmon Killebrew is not one.
When did Ralph Kiner play? I'm just thinking of old guys.
Is this 300 home runs though? When Babe, what's since so
when Babe Ruth
35?
retired,
There was only 3 other players.
only 2 other players had hit 300.
2 other players.
So we got to think like really old names, like not.
Right.
Not,
that's why Harmon Killebrew was. I would have thought it was a lock.
Is Jimmy Fox one?
No.
Okay. All right.
I can give you guys a hint if you want one.
Yeah,
I don't know how many.
I love baseball history, but I need some hints.
Here's your hint. One played for the Yankees, the other mostly for the St. Louis Cardinals.
So Lou Gehrig?
Correct. Lou Gehrig had 378.
Sam Musial.
No.
Fuck.
Yes,
cut that out.
Stan was like I was reading the Hank Aaron book. Stan's more like 50s. It's a Cardinal in the 30s. Is he a Hall of Famer?
I don't know the answer to that question. Sorry.
A St. Louis Cardinal.
And I don't really know anything else about this other guy, so.
Man, I want to. It's gonna be some dude with an interesting name. I have the feeling of it.
A little bit.
Yeah,
Ricky. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm looking at the 1935 St. Louis Cardinals roster. I couldn't tell you. I don't know any of these guys are.
So I'll give a shout out to my friend Ron, who does a video, like a replay of the 1949 season on YouTube through a baseball game, and there's some crazy names in 1949. It's crazy nicknames. So I know I'm not going to get this. So Alexis, you win. What's the answer?
I was going to say, one more hint. I mean, he played for the Cardinals, New York Giants, Boston Braves, Chicago Cubs, and St. Louis Browns. The answer is Rogers Hornsby.
Rogers Hornsby. Okay.
Hornsby hit that many home runs?
Okay, see, I don't know why. I thought you said 1935. I don't know why you said that. But, did you say 1935?
I did say 1935. That's when Babe Ruth retired.
Rogers, okay. Wow, that's interesting.
All right, I got to give Alexis credit for that. But now I know where to expand my history for the next time.
Listen,
I'm not go that hard.
That I had to stay recent, so just saying. My goal was to stump you, and I did. So mission accomplished.
Fair enough. So next week, James has actually volunteered to come up with the trivia question. I'm hoping James stays in the middle between recent and 1935.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go back that far. I don't think that's where I'm gonna go.
All right, fair enough. So let's wrap into the final thoughts this week after a great trivia question by Alexis. So since Alexis stumped me, I'm going to let her go first this week with final thoughts. What do we got?
My final thoughts, the Jaguars are going teal. I am very excited about this news that came out this week. Our home jerseys are going to be teal. Our primary color is teal. We're bringing back the teal baby in Jacksonville, and I'm stoked about it.
Definitely interesting with the color change or bringing back the teal color. James, what do you got?
Primary, so going back.
There we go. James, what do you got?
Yeah, I guess I'll go with the Knicks. So I know they lost to kind of Orlando last night, but at one point they were the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. That's crazy. I thought they were going to be the worst team in basketball. Never mind a playoff team. So I can't wait to get fans back in the building at Madison Square Garden coming up. It's going to be fun to hear and fun to see. Julius Randle deserves a standing ovation. He deserves multiple standing ovations. I know the building's not going to be rocking because it's 10% capacity, but at this point, I'll take what I can get. So, fans back in the building in Madison Square Garden.
I'll give you two, both baseball related. One of the things I found interesting, MLB Network did their top 100 players. Are both of you surprised Gerrit Cole is not a top 10 player?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. To me, that's crazy because he's undisputed top 2 pitcher in baseball.
Now, so DJ LeMahieu was 14th.
Which, to me, is also crazy.
Finished higher than Lindor, Story, Bregman, Machado. LeMahieu's behind, if you want to go 13 through 11, LeMahieu's behind Arenado, Bieber, and Cole. Would you put LeMahieu over any of those three? I'm not sure.
I would not.
Okay. So I think 14 is pretty much where I would go. All right, so let's throw this out there. I'll give you 10 through 7. You tell me if Cole should be higher than any of these players. This is 10 through 7. 10 is Cody Ballinger.
Okay.
So would you put Cole or would you rank Cole or Bellinger?
I would put Cole ahead of Cody Ballinger. Yes.
Okay.
Cody Ballinger was not good last season. He had one good season in his entire career. One phenomenal season in his entire career.
Good end of the postseason, but I would agree. I think Cole's higher than Bellinger on my list. Christian Yelich, number 9.
Yes.
I would.
Well,
I mean, I don't know. He had a tough season last year. To me, that's debatable.
It's, I think, to Alexis's point, she said yes. How do you view Yelich? You view him more off of last year's bad season, or you view him off the good season 2 years ago?
I think
great season 2 years ago.
I think you even base it off that. I mean, we all said, Cole didn't necessarily have his best stuff last year either. So I think if you compare the two, I'd still put Cole ahead of Yelich.
I'm leaning Cole.
All right, so Cole or Anthony Rendon?
Cole. That's
number
not close 8. To me.
I like Rendon a lot. I don't see why he's 8th. Last year he was 6th.
Yeah. No, I don't. To me, that's not close.
All right, so I think Cole would get to 8th on all of our lists. Would you rank Cole higher than Ronald Acuna?
I would not.
No.
All right, so Gerrit Cole should be at least top 7 or top 8. Acuna's 7. So I think Cole, but it's still a really good list. Your top 5 on this list was Trout 1, obviously. Mookie Betts was 2. Jacob deGrom was 3. Freddie Freeman 4th. Juan Soto 5th. Now Tatis was 6th. I'm going to get to him in a second, but any of you surprised by that top 5?
No.
DeGrom at 3 is interesting.
Well, he's been doing it for a while, to say the least. He's been kind of at this sub-2, low-2 ERA kind of run for the past couple of seasons. So I would – but is the gap between him and Gerrit Cole I don't think is as significant as kind of they made it. Because, again, Gerrit Cole's pitched in the American League. Jacob deGrom's pitched in the National League in kind of a weak division for most of his career, but now I guess it's kind of strong. So I don't think the gap – I don't see Jacob deGrom being 3 and Gerrit Cole being 11 making all that much sense, or whichever he was, making all that much sense in my opinion. Because again, to me, the only way you're making the argument Gerrit Cole is 11 is because he doesn't play every day. But neither does Jacob deGrom. So how is he 3 and how is Cole 11? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's
Cole,
where it sounds to me.
How is Cole barely above Shane Bieber? But to be fair, after Bieber, your next starter isn't until 2028 with Scherzer. There's a big gap between pitchers.
Yeah. But there shouldn't be as big of a gap. If anything, deGrom and Cole, if you're going to put one pitcher top 3, you got to put the other pitcher right behind them. Because there's not that much of a difference in them performance-wise, because they're both dominant. Like, let's not get crazy here. They both are top 2 pitcher in baseball, obviously, even they rank that. But you can't put 1 3, 1 11, because the only argument you can make is that regular players play every single day, 162 games. Pitchers pitch every 5th day. So that I can see, but it's a little contradicting.
So look at it from the, Alexis, I'll let you chime in as well before I give the last final thought. Judge at 21. I think we talked about you and I, Alexis, I think talked about that last week, right? That Aaron Judge barely made didn't make a top 20. Well, we talked about Stanton last week, so let's actually. You think Judge is a top 20 player? Like, to me, I rank Judge over George Springer. I'd rank him over Jose Ramirez. I don't know if I'd rank him over Machado, though. But I think Judge should be a top 20 player. But I think we're picking at straws, right, Alexis, if we're going with him at 21?
Yeah, I think I would say he's a top 20 player for sure. I think maybe especially if you take last year out of consideration. Last year we know he didn't necessarily have his best stuff either. But, I mean, last year was just an interesting year for all the players all around with COVID and the stop-start, quarantine, all right, you can play again. Just the back and forth and injuries and just the preparation that did not really happen for last year. I think you kind of take that out of the equation and say, yeah, Aaron Judge is a top 20 for sure.
So I want to wrap it up. The second last baseball thought I had. Fernando Tatis Jr. gets paid. 14 years, $340 million. And I know a lot of people have said it's bad for baseball because he's now stuck in San Diego for 14 years. And it's in a West Coast market. Not a lot of people are going to watch. Dodgers-Padres just became the new Yankees-Red Sox, where we're going to watch that 19 times. We're going to look forward to bad blood. We're going to look forward to great matchups, hitter versus pitcher. Dodgers, they had Bauer. Padres, they had Darvish and Snell and Musgrove. They made a couple good relief options this week. They got both Mark Melancon and Keone Kela, so they add more depth to that bullpen. A.J. Preller continuing to win the winner. So I don't think it's a bad thing he's in San Diego because as long as the Padres are good, people are going to watch. So they're the new it team for the season. So it's not a bad thing he's there. They now have two infielders making over $300 million apiece. So for when nobody's spending this winter, got to give credit to San Diego for doing that. And I think with Tatis, I know he hasn't played that many games. He hasn't played a whole season yet. But we've talked about him before on the show. And the reason I needed a non-Yankee player T-shirt. I got a Tatis Brown Padre T-shirt for Christmas. Is I love watching him play. Like, the defense, the flair, the power. He's got everything. Now, I don't know if that means Juan Soto is going to get this much money when he's a free agent. I'm looking forward to seeing when he gets paid. I don't think you blame Acuna and Albies for taking less money from Atlanta because, remember, they're going to hit free agency earlier than Tatis is. So let's evaluate this in time when Acuna and Albies become free agents, if Soto gets the free agency, and let's see what the deals are, and then we can compare them. I don't think that's fair because, to Ronald Acuna's eyes, he's making $100 million. I don't think he's complaining about that. I thought that stood out this week. My non-baseball one would probably be Naomi Osaka against Serena Williams. I really enjoyed that match for the Australian Open. Interested to see where Serena goes from here, but Osaka is so much fun. The way she hits the ball and her media post-game press conferences are, let's just say, must-see. Because she speaks so softly, but her words are powerful. So keep an eye on that this week. Thanks to all you for tuning in. We'll be back next week to look ahead to the first games of spring training. Maybe we'll get a guest on too next week. We'll have some fun with that. Yankees make more moves. We'll talk about that as well. Want to remind you can follow us on Twitter at Pinstripe Pros, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Again, it's under Pinstripe Prospects, but you'll see the Chasin 28 podcast there, wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to give us a rating. We want to hear from you, what you like, what you don't like, and email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. And, of course, sign up for our Dugout membership program, $5.50 a month, $40 a year. Use the promo code Chasin28pod. Get your first 7 days free. We greatly appreciate it and helps us provide the great content that we'll provide you over the course of the minor league season. So, Alexis, how can they follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me at Alexis Farinacci.
And, James, how can they follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me at O'Connell NY.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Rickinator555. Catch my show Kicking with Keeler this week on Full Press Radio. Have James Hansen from the Jazz SB Nation site. Utah's playing great basketball, so we'll talk about that. Catch my work over at Barrett Sports Media. This week I wrote about Ariel Helwani's interview with Sarah Spain, where he talks about his career in the UFC and how he got banned and unbanned by the UFC and how that changed his career when different media people stuck up for him. I have an article coming out tomorrow as well, or Friday. You could check that out. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Good job for Alexis on the trivia question. James, I'm sure, will have one next week for all of you. We hope you're enjoying that part of the show as well. From all of us at Pinstripe Prospects, please stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll see you back here next week for more Yankees spring training coverage.
Later.
Have a great night.